I'm Andrew Murata, host of the Education, Leadership, and Beyond podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you are listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to episode 272 of Fresh Air at 5. This week, I'm out and about. We went on a kayaking trip, and so I'm going to share some of my learning that I did while I was on my kayaking trip, some podcasts I listened to, and a bit more about our journey of working through a thing that was hard. So, doing hard things. And this is one of those hard things, and we did a hard thing. So, that's what this episode is going to be called. And without further ado, thanks for being here. Appreciate you. And here is episode 272 of Fresh Air at 5. Welcome to Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. I'm your host, Bryon Carpenter, coming to you every week from Abbotsford, which is about 45 minutes east of Vancouver, British Columbia, on the west coast of Canada. Fresh Air at 5 is my regular attempt to get some fresh air by walking about my neighborhood, which is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Stolo people, the Simath First Nation and Mathwe First Nation. I consume podcast content while I walk, then reflect on this content in an unedited video, which I post on my X, formerly known as Twitter, channel every day. This podcast is the collection of the audio taken from those daily selfie videos over the course of a week, Monday to Friday. So let's jump into my listening and learning this past week. Hey, PLN, it's August 11, 2026. I am way out here on the ocean, and our crew and I, we have paddled from Horseshoe Bay at Vancouver and camped overnight at Gambier Island. Now we are at Plumpers Cove on Keats Island. And so across there, past the boats in the back, is Gibson's. And so we're going to be going there eventually, and eventually pulling out at Langdale and walking on the ferry to get back home to our place where our vehicles are parked at Horseshoe Bay. So today, though, I did listen to a podcast, and because I've been paddling, and we've paddled 10 kilometers yesterday, 15 kilometers today, I haven't been walking. I'm actually quite tired, but we've had a very good time, and the ocean's beautiful and wonderful. I listened to episode 168 of Check This Out with Ryan O'Donnell and Brian Briggs. And boys, thank you for the shout out. It makes me feel special. And yes, I listened, and I didn't walk, as I said, but I did listen to your podcast. I listened to it all the way to the very end, where you're talking about Murder 101 and all the things that are going on with the cardboard Star Wars. I got to go check these things out when I get back to town and look at your show notes so I can go to these links, because here I got limited on data, trying to save battery when we're out kayaking, because, you know, you go through a 10,000 milliamp hour battery pretty quick if you're just always on the network. We do have network here, which is nice. So we're out, not super far away like we have been in the past 3 years, but it's about getting back in the saddle, and we did get back in the saddle to come out here kayaking. All right, you guys talk about my new best friend. Do you want to be my new best friend? That's the name of this episode. And that has to do with, you know, using Claude Designer. I got to go check this out. Get myself an educator account, because you said I can. And so I got to check it out and see what I can do with Claude Designer. Is it like Microsoft Designer or just way better? These are the questions that I've got, because my district is providing us with Microsoft accounts and not even Microsoft Designer at this point. So we can use Microsoft Copilot to do some AI stuff, and that's been good, but maybe I can do some stuff myself as a teacher with Claude Designer. Yes, hope you guys are doing well. it's nice to hear your voice. I really enjoy your podcast, as you guys know, and being up here in Moose Jaw, right on the ocean. That's like I live, I live in Moose Jaw. It's not true, actually. I live in just outside of Vancouver. But we enjoy the nature out here. Okay, talk to you soon. Okay, bye. Hey, PLN, it's August 12, 2026. Good morning to you, and it's a bit later in the day. We had a thunder shower here as we are out kayaking, and we are on the Sunshine Coast across from Gibson's Landing, British Columbia. We kayaked in from Vancouver and paddled our way over the course of 25 kilometers to get here, and now we are enjoying this beautiful campsite. We are down at the beach down there right now because the sun is shining, and we're drying our stuff out, so that's really good. All right, this morning as I'm putzing about camp, I listened to episode 100 of SEL in Education with Dr. Krista Lay, as she brings us one caring, consistent adult, what it means to be part of CASA, the court-appointed special advocacy group in California, with Dr. Michelle Ogden. And she talks to Michelle about her engagement as an adult in a young person's life that is in the foster system, and this organization CASA finds fits for adults and clients for young people that need a mentor in their life. Now, this is not a social work program. This is not a it's about having someone in your corner that is not being paid, that volunteers and cares deeply about children. And you know what? As adults, I think it's imperative that we care about kids. And what are we doing about that? How are we involved in children's lives, in kids' lives, in our communities? Because I think we have a lot to offer outside of our family. We have a lot we need to offer inside of our family. We need to take care of our family. But if there's an opportunity that presents itself that you have the capacity to go beyond your family, whether you are like a youth worker at your church doing, youth group things, or whether you're involved in the YMCA or community services somehow as a volunteer, that is important for the people, the youth, as well as for the adults, because us feeding into others is such an important part of us being human beings. As educators, we do that. That's one of the things that we do. But this is another way that we could give and be engaged in our community. So consider that. Take a listen to this episode 100. And by the way, Krista, congratulations on episode 100 of SEL in Education. That's fantastic that you have arrived at this episode number. On to the next 100. And what are you doing to make a difference in kids' lives around you? All right, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for listening. Take a listen for yourself, because this was an inspiring episode of SEL in Education, as all of them are. Okay, bye. Hey, PLN, it's August 15, 2026, out for Fresh Air at 5 here on Saturday morning, early in the morning. Sun's coming up behind me. We have smoke in the air because of the wildfires in the interior of British Columbia blowing this way, and the air quality is not spectacular. I can complain about the air quality, but I don't have my house burning down and our neighborhood burning down. So I am thankful for where I live, and my thoughts go out to those that are struggling in the interior where there are wildfires. This is going on all over the world right now. And so, be mindful that it might be hard to breathe, but you're not having your house and property affected the same way as those that are in the midst of it. Okay, that's my compassionate thought this morning, and my gratitude thought this morning. As I'm walking and I listened to episode 5 of the SatCast podcast with Dr. Dan Kreiness, the new co-host, along with Chris Nessie, as they bring us the question, are grades getting in the way of learning? And now, just the title alone, guys, just got me fired up and excited, because, I believe that learning is essential. It is paramount. It's the whole point of us being educators, is to get our students to learn how to learn and to be learners as opposed to grade getters. And our system has set it up so that students get grades. That's important. That is like the numerical value, or the way of generally saying that someone has learned something by a level of assessment and attaching a number or a scale to that. Here in British Columbia, we are using the proficiency scale that goes from developing or emerging to developing to proficient and then extending. And now there's a 4-point scale from low to high. Proficient means, well, what does that mean? Now, is that like 100%, or is that just enough to get by, or what? We don't know. Like that's another big question that's going on here. But I feel that and that scale right now is affecting K to grade 9, and then beyond that we still have our ABCD scale and numerical values attached to their learning. And so I believe that grades do get in the way of learning, because unless you have your motivation intrinsically inside you set up properly, it's about the paycheck. If we are chasing the paycheck of grades, then that's going to affect how we approach getting done what we need to get done. Coming right back 1 second from now. One more thing for August 15, 2026. As I'm reflecting on episode 5 of the SATcast with Dan Krynas and Chris Nessie as they bring us Our Grades Getting in the Way of Learning. Okay, so I was saying previously in the previous section that I think that grades can be a distractor from, that grades are like, getting a paycheck and wanting to get paid lots without doing the work to get paid lots. Like I see students, and I just see even a trend in our young people that are out in the workforce, that they just want to, they want to get a good job that pays well, but they don't really want to do the work. And friends of mine that own business and things like that are talking about the weak labor force and how that is affecting their businesses from having production and things like that. How do we convince our students that the idea of learning is important? And that's a big conversation. Do we give them grades? Do we give them pass-fail? And speaking of the pass-fail system, in my teaching career education, we had a pass-fail system at the Simon Fraser University for the PDP program, and it was great. It took off some pressure, but it also added some pressure, because is it like, am I doing enough? How high is that pass-fail line? Is it enough to get by? I think that it was a relief to know that I was going to pass because I was putting in the effort and things were going along, but that wonder of, am I doing sufficient to be able to get by? That could be, a problem, right? So I believe that grades do matter, but only at the end of the day, and students need to prove their proficiency in areas so that they can stand on their own 2 feet and, regardless of the grade, know the content. How do we make sure that they're coming out, they might have an A in a class, but that could be because, teacher was soft and the teacher was just, a giver, and gave away marks because, kids need marks. Everyone needs a participation ribbon, and does that help our society? I don't know. I don't think it does, because if we have a society where everyone gets a participation ribbon, how are we going to see our leaders arise in the midst of everybody participating? Okay, that's my little thought there. And so, did I answer the question? I think grades do matter, but I do think that they get. One more thing for August 15, 2026. Earlier this week, we were out kayaking near Vancouver on the ocean, and we were at a campsite. And on Thursday morning, I woke up and I listened to a couple of podcasts This being one of them that I'm going to share with you right now. But I didn't get a chance to record. After I woke up and made my coffee, listened to my podcast, my buds woke up, my wife woke up, and we packed up and we paddled away and came home. So I never got a chance to record, but I'm going to do that right now. So this is episode 383 of the Easy EdTech podcast with Monica Burns, as she brings us an episode entitled How to Get Started, or How to Effectively, okay, it's not called this, How to Effectively Use AI Images in Your Classroom, and how teachers can get started doing that. And so, Monica, thank you so much for this episode, because it speaks to the utility of a tool that can do creation type things for you. If you're looking for that perfect image, doing a Google search and searching through hundreds or thousands of pictures might not render the results that you're after, but asking a chatbot to generate an image for you, like using something like Canva or Adobe Express or Claude or even ChatGPT, can afford a result for you that otherwise would take a bit of time and not be the result that you're after. I really like that idea. Is that cheating? You could be. Am I in art class trying to create an image and call it mine? Well, that's wrong, because I'm not giving attribution to where it came from. But if I'm looking for an image for my class so that I can demonstrate a point or something like that, or have a provocative image that could, inspire some thought as a prompt for writing or something like that, this is a great way to do that. Monica talks about this in her book, 12 EdTech Essentials, and I have the book. I think it was starting on page 41 that she shares some other ideas for you. So, using AI images in your classroom, take a listen to what Monica has to say and get started doing so for yourself so that you can effectively use these tools that aren't going away to help you with your lesson planning and for your inspiration in your classroom. All right, that's all for this one, and I'm coming back with one more in just a moment. All right, the last thing for August 15, 2026. This past week, as I said, we were out kayaking, and this was our second time in our kayak since the incident last summer that caused quite a bit of trauma for my wife and myself and the other 6 members of our crew. We were out, if you go back a year ago, I talk about this a little bit, about how we were in the ocean and we rolled over in the ocean, my wife and I, from our tandem kayak, and eventually we had to get rescued by the Coast Guard. It was very traumatic, it was very scary, but this kayaking trip that we did was our first time back on the ocean and in our kayak after it had been repaired and our confidence had been regained and we were feeling quite a bit more confident and wanting to go back. So this is like getting back on the horse after you get bucked off. It took a year for us to be able to do that. We left Horseshoe Bay. We paddled to Gambier Island, which was 10 kilometers. And then from there, the next day, we paddled to Keats Island, which was 15 kilometers away, and then to Langdale Ferry, where we walked on the ferry with our kayaks. At the end, we hit some bumps, hit some waves, like some choppy waves and some turbulent water, but nothing like we did last year. And it was about working through our fear. In episode 20 of season 3 of The Inspired Athlete, Mike Brilla brings us an episode called Fear, No Fear. No, don't fear fear. And so this has to do about being afraid because we are afraid. About pushing through that to do things that are hard. So yeah, this was our working on our fear and working through that. So Mike, in this situation, we have to do risk assessment and look at what are the risks of being afraid. Is that fear there that is legitimate or is it not? If it's afraid of, something that's not going to harm us, might cause us some mental distress, but we are safe and all those things, then I think it's fine for us to push through that fear. But if it's about actually there's a waterfall and, I'm going to not be afraid and I'm going to paddle my kayak over a waterfall that's going to drop, 60 feet, that's unrealistic, I think. But you're not talking about that. You're talking about dealing with the notion of fear and about us doing things that are hard. And my wife and I and crew, we did a hard thing this past week, and I'm really happy that we got through it. We had a successful time and enjoyable experience. All right, hope you're doing well. That's it for this week, and we'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye.
I appreciate you giving me a listen as I've created this podcast experience for you. It's like a unique Blinkist or Coles Notes version of the content I take in, like a highlight reel, so that you can hopefully find some other interesting podcasts you may not have considered before. I've recorded the specific episode podcast titles and episode numbers in the show notes, which are only a click or swipe away for your learning convenience. I've also started to put together a Spotify playlist of each of the episodes so that you can also take a listen to those specifically, and the link to that playlist is in the show notes. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming episodes. And if you enjoy this podcast and its format, share it with someone else. You can also follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Bryon Carr, BRYONCAR, or at Fresh Air at 5. Tweet about your experience or give it a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. Fresh Air at 5 can be found on the Educational Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. I hope you have a fantastic day. Get some fresh air before the day is out and take care of yourself because you are worth it.